Welcome back. This is yet another segment on infographics. At this point, you've had an introduction video, you've reviewed the handout, and you've beta tested some of the free software I talked about. So, based on feedback from students from last year, they asked that I do some of the training on new software and instructional techniques early in the semester so they could focus on content throughout the course, which makes sense. So, part 1 of infographic training. For some of you, this might be your first time to create an infographic. Stepping out of your comfort zone, for some people, is very uncomfortable. This year, I'm trying to make that transition a little easier for you and provide you a valuable instructional tool that you can use over and over again. Remember, the infographics on the slide I showed you in the introduction lesson, Educating the Workforce of the Future. We discussed how infographics can take large quantities of data and information and present it clearly. When you look at this slide right here and you look at the green and the blue and the orange, it tells a story or the need for an educated workforce in our country from the year 1973 all the way up to 2018. Take a look at this slide right here. What I'm saying to you is be creative. But I'm not in art class, Dr. Cates. Creativity is often overlooked in hard sciences. Being creative can let you display and know your information better and more effectively. Construct full knowledge. Stay with me on this now. Without even knowing this topic right here, when you look at it, you can see that China and India represent the largest proportion. Also note the color connections and which colors and how they put grouped countries together. Let's continue on. Now, when you look at the title right there, you know this is carbon emissions by nation. Remember how important color was, right? Notice the color coding right here. The light green are the North American countries. When you put it all together, here's what you get. You had the global carbon footprint by Stanford K. and Miller McCune. Now you can see the creativity in their infographic. Hopefully this image and a few more images that I'm going to share with you will spark your creativity. Simplify and illuminate. And let me give you an example. This happened to me this morning, and I got an idea when I was reviewing this PowerPoint. We all were creative at one point when we were little kids. Somehow, over the years, we've gotten so serious that we miss some of that creativity. This is a GIS map that I'm working with one of the honor students. She's mapping the different states for the number of days opiates can be prescribed. So I got this idea and a little spark of creativity. So here's my idea right here. So what I did was I took the ArcGIS map and I thought about the days and I showed the medication. So the Nevada is 7 days. So if you look over here, Nevada is 7 days that they can prescribe, and Utah is 30 days. So think about this. If you're one of the honor students or you want to become an honor student, ArcGIS might be an excellent tool to utilize and take advantage of, because really ArcGIS is just another form of an infographic. So maybe this is something we can work out together, and I'm not big on extra credit, but I have a saying that if you add value to the course, I can add value to your grade. So maybe we can get together and utilize, I've put up above me right here, is the UF apps. And ArcGIS is available to you as a student. And it's a very expensive program. It's a very powerful program. But it might get you thinking about your honors program and in your final project in that, or creating a poster. So I'd like you to take advantage of some of these skills that you're learning in this class to think about how you can improve the quality of your posters when you participate in Public Health Day. So let's continue on. So here's an example by Sean Haley, and he's called it CAD Drinks. AutoCAD is an engineering tool, but what an interesting use of this tool. Exact measurements. That is what I think of when I think about engineering. Here's another example. Let's go back to our field of study. So part of that handout that I gave you is saying know your data. So chronological, year to year. And if you look at this, you can see this is the taxes by state and federal collections. So let's say you're from, let's take an example, an extreme example. A pack of Marlboro Reds in Manhattan costs $13. Well, $4.35 of that is a state tax. Then they have a city tax. Then they have a tax on top of, with the federal tax on top of that. So, you know, I move out of the way a little bit right here, and you can see it's progressively going up year after year after year. So they're taxing to help to try to get you to stop smoking. So, continuing on. Here's another one that kind of looks at it chronologically, and it's looking at the drop in smoking over the years. I'll step out again, and you can see that, you know, as the years progress, we're smoking less and less. Now, what could be done differently a little bit on this particular infographic? I think it could have benefited from not having all those lines drawn through it, and I might have taken this stack of cigarettes right here and dipped it all the way down that we're smoking less, less, and less. Okay, here's another example. This one right here is doing a comparison. So strategy 7 of the 9 strategies that you have on page 11 in the handout, this is a comparison between Greece and the United States. Look at how much the U.S. smokes and look at how much Greece smokes in comparison. So we've just burnt that little bit, and they smoke 3 times as much. So something to consider, but I think it's presented in a very interesting way, and so think about using comparisons and contrasting. So I'm going to give you an assessment on this material, so I'm going to give you the areas that I want you to know before I cut you loose on an infographic assignment. Make sure you know the information on page 9 in that handout and the 9 strategies. You just saw some chronological examples. A spatial example would be what we use with John Snow, where he took the spatial information on the locations of the water pumps, and then the quantitative data would be the deaths associated with that. So the locations and the number of cholera deaths. So qualitative information, that's going to be information about qualities, for example, eye color or favorite foods. So this is the information that you need to know. And let me say this. When you create your infographic, the cohesive whole should be more than sum of its parts. So when you put it all together, it should tell a story, it should be a call to action, it should represent something larger than just percentages and some text. So let's continue on. So, what do you see? Your response is a clock. This is a well-known infographic all around the world. 3 hands running at 3 different speeds, which reveals seconds, minutes, hours. What's interesting is it's 3 measurements using 1 scale, that face of the clock. Again, what do you see? Your mind is seeing a clock. But I've shown this image in class several times, and many students don't pick up that it's missing number 11 and number 12. Now stay with me. Here's another great infographic, the periodic table. The atomic number at the center of each of the boxes there, it uses color for metals and nonmetals. All right, stay with me. Here's another one. So what do you see? This is a famous image called The Treachery of Images by René Magritte. This helps explain our visual communication system and how words and images can collide. Let me put it in English and step back a little bit. So, let's try it again. What do you see? To most people, this image represents a pipe, both socially and culturally. The painting is not a pipe, but rather an image of a pipe. Magritte's art is frequently disturbing and filled with discontinuities. So let me give you an example. This one is called the false mirror. Notice the pupil. It rests dead center in sharp contrast to the blue and white of the sky. All the symmetries originate around the pupil, the black dot there in the middle. Did Magritte mean for that to be the center? Or were they actually looking for the area and wanting you to focus around that center and look at the sky? Is the sky a part of the eye? Is the eye a looking glass to see the sky? Extreme, yes, but yet powerful. But Dr. Cates, I'm not an artist. I'm pointing out some of these techniques of doubling and repetition and mirroring and concealment used to capture how this artist used these to capture their audience. I want you to think, how is your infographic going to capture the eye of your audience? Stay with me. So what do you see? Let's take the abstract, from the typical to the general. When realistic representations are simplified, they become easier to identify. Stay with me. What is that? Now when I ask you, again, let me say this. These simplify and it makes it easier to identify. I bet now you can tell me what that abstract image is when you're looking at it. All right? So here we go, right here. Here's two. When you look at these infographics, you immediately understand the meaning without any words. I want you to try and work some of this original type of abstract into your infographic project this year. And also, let's consider color a little bit. Yes, color. Color is very important. And I don't know if you know this, but the higher the sequence of the light on the traffic light, the greater its importance. So red is stop at the very top, right? I created an infographic last semester. You may not get it right away, but I guarantee by the end of the semester you'll understand what I'm talking about here. So here's my infographic, the next slide. Let me step over. So what is that? What's happening there? I'll give you a hint. The light bulb is your brain. So in class, if you have your computer on and out, what I'm getting at is the more that you close your computer and you listen and participate, the more you're going to learn, more and more as you participate as part of the class and you listen to the discussions that we're having in class. So that was my quick infographic. Let me share some other infographics with you. So this one right here is Gray's Anatomy. And it's an example of integrating. That's one of the strategies, number 9 on page 11 in your handout. This is a famous anatomy textbook, which both embeds words into the images and uses color, again, extensively to show the organs and the different parts of the body. Here's another example. I love this one. This is London's Underground Railroad. This is an early map of the Underground Railroad, and people had to use this map to move around the city. It's very detailed. It's very confusing. But then along came a guy named Harry Beck, and he thought outside the box, that there could be a way to create this map and make it less confusing. And what did he use? An infographic. So let me show you his map. So this is the London's tube. Harry sketched the tube like an electrical circuit board, and he used only vertical and horizontal lines, and he used 45-degree angles, and then he color-coded everything. So even though as you're looking as it progresses down there, it may be 10 kilometers apart, 20 kilometers apart, he put it in order so that when you look at it, you say, okay, I'm going that direction on the blue line, that's how I'm going to get home. Although geographically incorrect, it provided a coherent way or an overview of a very complex system. This is going to be an example of spatial data. You remember this one? I've come full circle now. This is a map of London. And what does it tell us? Not a whole lot right now, right? But what happens when you add a little data to it? These dots represented cholera in 1854. So you're good on that. But what do you see? When you look at that map, what do you see? And your answer should be a concentration. So, remember the abstract. I pointed out that's a hot spot. See where he stacked it all up, all the deaths, pointed to the pump, to the Broad Street pump. Now you know what John Snow did. That could be a great test question throughout the year. It's great when it comes up in your epidemiology class. So, here's current right now. Take a look at this. This is a shift from 1854 to the present. Researchers now use data with current GIS, and I showed you a little GIS earlier, with the weights associated to each point on the map on the basis of the number of cholera cases. So the red area, which is the most important, shows the highest probability of cholera. That's called a hotspot. So it's a great tool, and I'd like you to consider that. So, in closing, remember to check Canvas for updates, and we'll talk a little bit more about infographics in the next class before you take your quiz on the infographic handout. Thank you, and I'll see you on the next video.